Hello, everyone. My name is Ole Kagan, and I'm the Community Engagement Coordinator with LA County Library, and I welcome you to Work Ready, Finding Your Target Audience. Before we get going with today's event, I will do the land acknowledgement, take care of some housekeeping, and tell you a little bit about the Work Ready program. So for the land acknowledgement, the County of Los Angeles recognizes that we occupy land originally and still inhabited and cared for by the Tongva, Tataviam, Serrano, Kizh, and Chumash peoples. We honor and pay respect to their elders and descendants, past, present, and emerging, as they continue their stewardship of these lands and waters. We acknowledge that settler colonization resulted in land seizure, disease, subjugation, slavery, relocation, broken promises, genocide, and multi-generational trauma. This acknowledgement demonstrates our responsibility and commitment to truth, healing, and reconciliation, and to elevating the stories, culture, and community of the original inhabitants of Los Angeles County. We are grateful to have the opportunity to live and work on these ancestral lands. We are dedicated to growing and sustaining relationships with Native peoples and local tribal governments, including, in no particular order, the Fernandino Tataviam Band of Mission Indians, the Gabrielino Tongva Indians of California Tribal Council, the Gabrielino Tongva San Gabriel Band of Mission Indians, the Gabrielino Band of Mission Indians Kizh Nation, San Manuel Band of Mission Indians, and the San Fernando Band of Mission Indians. To learn more about the First Peoples of Los Angeles County, please visit the Los Angeles City County Native American Indian Commission website at lanic.lacounty.gov. I'm going to post that in the chat as well. All right. Now I'm going to do a little bit of housekeeping, tell you about the Work Ready program. So if you can hear me and see the slide up on the screen, then you are good to go. However, if you're having trouble hearing me or seeing the slide on the screen, do let me know in the chat and I will do my best to assist. If you would like to listen to this presentation on the phone, you can do that by calling 1-669-900-6833 and using the access code 863 7645-4894. I just realized the number on the slide is different. So the correct number is 863-7654-4894, and the passcode is 123. 123. Pardon me, one more time. I'm going to post the correct number in the chat. There we go. You may have noticed that the mics and video is disabled for attendees, and that is so that everyone can focus on our panelists for today. We do, however, welcome your questions. You can post those at any time in the Q&A box. Please do post them in the Q&A box. That's the one with the two speech bubbles. That way we can keep all of the questions in order, not miss your questions if you post them in the chat, which moves relatively quickly. If you do have comments during the presentation, do put them in the chat. That's the box with the single speech bubble, and we'll see those as well. All right, and now I'd like to tell you about the Work Ready program. Work Ready started in December of 2020 with the purpose of helping people get a job, improve their work situation, and plan a more sustainable career path. We do that in two ways. One is we lend out laptops and Wi-Fi hotspots for 6-week loans out of 27 library locations, breaking down one barrier for folks who are trying to get a job and get online training. And number two is we provide virtual events just like this one on a range of work-related topics, from basics like resumes, cover letters, interviews, to deep dives into various careers and other subjects to help you succeed at work. And over 50 of those programs are available on our YouTube channel. So if you're interested in work-related topics, from the basics to more complex and interesting subjects, those are on our YouTube channel and available for you to watch and share with anybody who you think would be interested at your leisure. And of course, all of those are free. The Work Ready program is made possible due to funds provided by the American Rescue Plan. And we have a program coming up for you next week that I would like to share with you, and that is Work Ready Careers in Cosmetology, Tuesday, May 28th at 11 a.m. We're going to have another panel of professionals working in the field of cosmetology to share their careers trajectories with you, what you need to get started, and any advice for those wanting to get into the field of making people beautiful. And if you'd like to learn more about our virtual events or in-person events, head over to lacountylibrary.org and click on the events link at the upper right-hand side. If you click on that, you get our full calendar of in-person and virtual events for kids, teens, adults, older adults. All of those are absolutely free. And if you're only interested in virtual events like this one, then you can go to our website, once again, lacountylibrary.org. You can hover over that events button and you'll get a little drop down. It says virtual programming. Click on that and you get all our virtual programs. Also all ages, also free. Okay, thank you for your patience. And now it is time to get going with our program for today. And to do that, I'm going to introduce our esteemed panel. We're going to start with Judith Norman. Judith is a seasoned entrepreneur and the driving force behind StartHER TV. By spotlighting the stories of Black and Brown women entrepreneurs, StartHER TV aims to bring fresh and empowering narratives to the streaming world. Judith's hands-on strategy in understanding her audience and using data to guide her vision lays the groundwork for creating meaningful and inclusive content that will resonate with all. Welcome, Judith. Our next panelist is Naomi Wright. Naomi is a Cannes Lion Award-winning producer at the Spring Hill Company and co-founder of Fortune and Forks, a professional network for women of color in entertainment. Her work as a producer in the unscripted and documented space lives at the intersection of pop culture, entertainment, and social impact, with a specific aim of amplifying stories of Black people, women, and underrepresented voices. Her social club and professional network, Fortune and Forks, which developed through key partnerships with brands like Samsung, Snapchat, and Nike, offers professional support and networking opportunities to young, ambitious women of color who embody what it takes to thrive in media, business, and more. Welcome, Naomi. Our next panelist is Crystal Vega. Crystal is a multimedia journalist driven by her passion for entertainment, beauty, and fashion in a new American mainstream. Crystal has worked with platforms like eNews, Telemundo, BET, and Complex. Recognized that she would not have had the opportunities she's received without the support of other women of color in the industry, Crystal co-founded Fortune and Forks, a social club and professional network for women to foster fellowship, celebrate accomplishments, and exchange key resources amongst each other on the journey towards major success. Welcome, Crystal. Our next panelist is Venus Adams. Venus is an entrepreneur and founding creator of Venus, a lifestyle wellness apparel and accessories brand. The Luxe Lounge collection features a fashion-forward and functional approach to comfort and style. This yoga-inspired take on active leisure wear incorporating natural fibers is a brand featured in retreat and wellness centers. The Venus yoga-based ethos includes incorporating natural and biodegradable fabrications that support communities and our planet. Welcome, Venus. And our final panelist is Kanisha Gill. Kanisha is a personal branding photographer. She started her photography journey in 2019 with the goal of empowering entrepreneurs to pursue their dreams and establish their businesses. With a background in fashion design and merchandise marketing, Kanisha graduated from the Fashion Institute of Design and Merchandising. After 14 years of designing clothes for some of the biggest retailers in the world, she decided to embrace her entrepreneurial spirit. Now she's passionate about helping other entrepreneurs achieve their goals through her photography and guidance. Welcome, Kanisha, and welcome to all of our panelists. If we can all come on, we can begin the panel. So Judith, I'm going to pass the proverbial mic over to you to get us started.
Well, I just want to say hello. First of all, thank you, Oleg, for setting this up and allowing us to be here today. Hello to everyone who is joining us today. We're going to have a great conversation about finding your target audience. And for anyone who's not really familiar with what a target audience is, it's basically that group of people who you believe would be interested in your product or service. So, Oleg, you're the best moderator. I'm going to let you take the lead.
So let's start with the basics. Tell us about your business and how you began to identify your target audience. Let's start with Kanisha.
Hi, everyone. Good morning or good afternoon, depending where you're logging in from. My business started, I left the fashion industry and I just couldn't sit in meetings anymore arguing about a button. And so my one passion was always helping other people like concept ideas, creating their brand. And so when I stepped into the photography role, I wanted to make sure that I was still following that passion of helping other entrepreneurs understand and realize their dreams. At the end of the day, like when you resonate so deeply with a certain category, you kind of have to step fully into it. So I think that helped me define my target audience because I love entrepreneurship. I love seeing people, step fully into a dream that they've always wanted to pursue, to launch a business. And I want to make sure everyone has that same opportunity to really step in front of their brand and run it like a business and get that right in front of their target audience and make the money that they want to make. So when it comes to building your target audience, I always lead a little bit more with the passion behind it because it makes it so much easier to talk about content or, ideas and different things because you're already passionate about something. So I always say when you're thinking about your target audience, always think about the things that you're really passionate about that you can talk about for hours. And then that way it helps you kind of like create that and connection and foster that connection with your audience.
And your target audience that I mentioned in the direct is entrepreneurs, is that right?
Yeah, so my target audience is small businesses and female entrepreneurs.
Thank you. Crystal, would you like to go next?
Yeah, I actually was gonna piggyback off of what Kanisha was saying. I think finding our target audience. Well, Fortune Forks, we founded that our social club in 2017, and over time, it has become what it is. We originally started as a dinner series, and then COVID happened, so we started to pivot to kind of like virtual events. And as we came out of COVID, we started doing other events in addition to the dinners that we were hosting quarterly. So we would do like resume workshop, mental health workshops, hikes, and that sort of thing. And over time, a little bit of passion, like Nisha said, I think we have become what we are today, which is a social club for women of color and a professional network group. And for us, it was really organic to find our target audience because Naomi and I specifically were our target.
Yeah, I think the big difference too for us is that our business was started to serve a target audience of people, whereas, some people will have a product and then you have to find who the audience for that product is. We really created something that is for a specific demographic of young women of color where we saw a white space. And our business is really about bringing those people together. So it's just important for us in terms of finding, and then, also another subject I'm sure we'll get into is like maintaining that target audience or changing and growing, adapting to that target audience, has just been the work of like, staying tapped into what's happening and what the needs are of our community, our peers, the people around us.
I think I'm going to ask about research later because I think that's an interesting topic and continuing to serve that audience as they change. But to stick with the theme of introductions, Judith, tell us about your business and tell us about your target audience.
Okay, so my business is an independent niche streaming service that is dedicated to producing and distributing original aspirational stories that are stories and programs that are led by Black and Brown women entrepreneurs. So if you kind of think of like an HGTV, HGTV has all like real estate oriented programming led by primarily white entrepreneurs who are in the real estate industry. So with StartHER TV, so we can have programming, different genres that feature Black and brown women entrepreneurs as the lead. So for instance, like homesteading is a new thing, homesteading on HGTV is the pioneer woman. Maybe there's someone I have in mind, but there's like a popular Black woman who does homesteading on this beautiful estate, and so she could have a show. So that type of thing. Finding the target audience. My target audience obviously are Black and brown women who are looking for more positive representation of ourselves in the media space, particularly on screen. Finding my target audience, I'm still in the process of it, because I'm still in the process of defining my messaging so it's in progress. It's in progress. I'm learning, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to do this, because I want to learn from other people how to do this, because it is not easy to find your target audience, because what you think may be your target audience may not be. And then that's how you end up losing money, because you've made an investment into an audience that's not yours. So I'm here to learn steps to get to my audience, to develop that target audience. I know there's a lot of different methods that we will talk about. But I think probably the most important advice I would have for an entrepreneur is they have to know who they are as a brand before they can even talk about, it's like they have to be able to clearly define their message, to that target audience. Do you understand? I know it's kind of.
Yeah. Well, you sit here as a practitioner and as a student, which I think some of our audience
absolutely
out there is probably in the same place. And Venus?
Hi, I would say for me that Venus is a accessories and fashion brand inspired by yoga to the wellness community. And we do retail and wholesale to mostly yoga studios, meditation and retreat centers. But we also offer items for fashion. So we have fashion and accessories. And I found that when I originally made the turban line, I was one of those people who made a product because of my background in accessories. And I thought it would be a cool niche market instead of creating the entire collection at the time of the economy. But it ended up being something where I had to take a moment to think about, who did I design this product for? And how can this product serve society? Will it just be a fashion item? Am I just going to have an accessory that's for now and it goes? And I think I just decided that I wanted to find a niche market for my product. And once I decided that, it put me on a journey of research, trial and error, surveys, talking to friends, talking to family. And then I found that my established niche for turbans was oncology, children, and fashion with wellness. And the wellness sector kind of took off in a way that I could have never imagined, to be honest with you. So I ended up being a niche market for Kundalini Yoga, which I knew nothing about, was specifically a group of people who already wore turbans as a part of their yoga practice. And all I had to do was make it natural fiber and change the color to white instead of all black, or natural tones. So I kind of researched and navigated and fell into my market. It started off as a trial and error basis, and then it just kind of opened itself up and I landed. And soon, years later, the oncology sector became more popular, where I was doing more things with cancer support communities and with hospitals. And I created a flat seam turban for them. And then the loungewear and activewear came as a result of already established product offerings to the same clients that wanted more from me. So then I launched the fashion collection and offered that. And so it was a much easier sell to transition into with established clients. And then as you go with new clients, you find out there's another market sector, right? It opens the door up for other people to like. So originally I found that my market for apparel was yogis, but it was also women originally, I think from the ages of like 19 to 36, who just wanted more fitted active wear, natural fiber active wear. And then it has increased since then when I'm now offering appeals to people of almost all ages. We were originally a natural solution, chic solution to a bad hair day with the turbans. And then we became like the ultimate lounge wear collection, you know, for you to slide in and wear on and off the yoga mat.
I like that. On and off the yoga mat. I love it.
Thank you. That's there's a whole storyline there. And that's really interesting. I want to get back to the beginning of that story. I mean, for all of our panelists, what specific steps did you take to determine your target audience and decide whether it was big enough and whether there was enough need for the specific thing that you were offering? So, Kenisha, would you start, please?
For me as a photographer, like, you know, photography, you can do so many different genres. So I think for me, once I figured out, like, you know, weddings wasn't quite where I wanted to be. I don't like photographing children or, you know, certain things. So once I kind of niched down into personal branding, that's when I really started to identify my target audience, because personal branding can affect, you know, so many different aspects of business and business owners. What I did when I initially started, I worked with everyone. And then I found habits that I didn't like in certain categories. And so it kind of was like a process of elimination of what I liked about certain clientele. So for me, it was more sometimes just trial and error. I had an idea of what I kind of wanted to do, but then, you know, until you really step into it, you don't really know if that's really going to work. So sometimes it's like, okay, I worked through the process of finding that client, and then I realized like, maybe that particular style of client isn't for me. And then I kind of just weeded things out to narrow in. I feel like even it continues to progress even for me as I continue my business. I feel like now I'm even getting more comfortable just saying mostly, you know, 100% female entrepreneurs, because men don't quite do the same investment in their small business as women do. So I was like, might as well just kick them out. Because they weren't, you know, really responding to that. So I'm like, might as well take one thing off that I have to market to. And then kind of that same rotation, who are the clients that are finding me that are naturally gravitating towards me? What are the topics I can talk to about with this clients? For me, I'm trying to make things super easy. So it's, for me, it's like whatever I can talk a lot about naturally in content or in web copy and blogs and stuff like that is where I found like was a better target audience for me. So I use more of the process of elimination on my end.
So that's something similar to Venus, who had a few different niche markets and then try different things, figure out what worked. For Crystal and Naomi, I know that the Fortune and Fork started because of your own passion and your own what you saw a need for yourselves. Did you know from the beginning that something like this would be successful, that there was definitely a need that was big enough for you to find a business?
So
Yeah.
so our first, Naomi and I, just a little more context. Naomi and I used to intern together in the entertainment space. And while we were interning, we felt like, you know, there were a lot of dinners or like events that acknowledged women who were in like C-suite positions. And we felt like that there were a lot of women like us on the ground who were doing the work every single day. So we were like, you know, like, let's highlight these women. And from that idea, we did a test run at our first restaurant. At the time, I used to work at a restaurant, so we like booked the private space. And we invited like 20 women who worked amongst us, or like whether we had known or like just know of like through another friend. And basically we created proof of concept. And that first dinner that we did, it was honestly just an idea, and we were just like, let's see how it goes. Like, let's see, you know, what's the feedback that we get. And it was the feedback was much better than we anticipated. And from that, we kind of just like snowballed into what we are today. And I think now we are in a place where we're realizing the demand is much higher than we ever anticipated. And that's kind of like the battle we're facing now, which is like meeting the demand for.
Sorry, you hit mute right when you finished talking.
Oh yeah, I was saying now we're in a place where we are meeting the demand
Mhm.
of Fortune reports.
It's a good problem to have. And Judith, did you have anything to add?
For me, my background, I used to do a lot of producing video content, e-courses, fee-based e-courses in the crafts and hobby industry. So I worked with a lot of women entrepreneurs who had their own businesses and so doing that, we used to do a lot of things like live chats, and I would moderate, and I noticed that all of the women, most of our audience always wanted to know the story of the woman entrepreneur. They wanted to know, how can I do this too? But they really just wanted that to know her story. And so initially when I started StartHER TV, when I had the initial vision, it was women entrepreneurs, period. And so I was producing some short video series on my own and getting, seeing how people responded. And it shouldn't surprise me, but what did surprise me was that the people who responded most were Black and Brown women. They wanted to know more. They wanted to see more stories featuring women who look like us. So that made me kind of like focus more on them, because nobody else really was doing it in the way that I felt it should be done.
So there was a great question in the chat, and actually it anticipated what I was going to ask, and that is, so I'll read the question. My question was going to be about pivots. If you made subtle changes or big changes to your audience. The question in the chat is, when an entrepreneur wants to pivot from their original target audience, should the messaging be subtle or direct? Social media pages, who the website is catered to, etc. Venus, would you like to start?
Sure. I actually just recently pivoted. I went from being completely a fashion designer and stylist kind of in the yoga world, and I pivoted into teaching yoga. So I completely went to the other side of what I was doing. So the studio owners and, the very well-known yoga teachers are all my customers. And now I'm on the same platform as them. And one of the things I spent a lot of time thinking about evaluating how I wanted to present myself to an audience I was already established in, but now going into another sector. And I just gradually changed. I didn't change anything on the page they were originally following me on. I created a new Instagram page and just, allowed you to connect to both sides. I invited the customers to connect from the original page. I sent out emails. We did videos about the class offerings. And actually, we're in the midst right now of properly just doing that on a professional level and integrating the websites for the two brands. So there's the Venus brand of fashion, and then there's Yoga with Venus. And I also talked to a lot of people about it after starting and trying, and because you're confused about what's the proper step. The first thing is to just start. How you're going to do it and get it out of your mind. The other thing is just be open and to seeking advice on it from other professionals, because I found that everything is about authentic communications is something we focus on in yoga. And that extends in every area of your life. So you're simply communicating a new message to your either new customers or a new message, you're introducing yourself. So it's all about how you want or feel you want to communicate. And then like talking about it and just, it's as simple as I started off telling them on Instagram and people were very responsive to it. So it was much simpler than what I made up in my mind, I guess is what I'd like to convey. But, seek out resources and ask other people who have done it. It's really, I found it wasn't as complicated as I made it out in my mind.
Does anybody have anything to add on this topic? Because I wanted to pivot to a different. Yes, Kanisha, please.
I just think what Venus did was fantastic because she's still offering both services. So that's why she created a new page to now for a different audience. If you're an entrepreneur who's like literally like I did, I got rid of wedding photography. I just went in and just complete full direct rebrand on my end because I didn't want to keep the audience who's looking for this particular thing if I wasn't offering it anymore. And so for me, when I made the decision, like, this is my new target audience, I left that content there because it's still like an evolution of my progress. But I didn't want to speak to that bride anymore. I wanted to speak to the business owner. So I was a little more direct, just because I didn't want to keep having that conversation with that particular audience if I wasn't going to continue. So I let them kind of just like, either they resonated with me as a photographer and they stayed around, or they left because they're like, oh, this isn't quite the content I signed up for. And I'm like, which it was not. I shifted and now I'm focusing here. So I kind of gave my audience a chance to stay on board or get off.
Get off the train. Judith, I wanted to ask you, because I know that when we first came into contact, you sent me a book. You had created a book and you had created a lot of videos, and then you've shifted to streaming content. Can you talk a little bit about that pivot? By the way, the book was beautiful. I still remember it. It was just a lovely book. And I saw it and I immediately reached out to Judith about setting up some panels. But tell
Well,
us about this, the pivot to streaming content.
well, it's interesting that you say that because actually, I'm self-funded. So everything that I'm doing is coming out of my pocket. And so the mission has always been streaming. And so one of the ways, but I have a publishing background, I have a video production background. So one of the things, the reason for the book was to use it as a tool to raise money for the streaming service. So, that was just one of my big ideas to kind of get some money coming in to fund the productions for the streaming service. So again, it's pivoting, like we were just talking about. I think the mistake that I made, people weren't really clear about the fact that this book is basically a fundraising tool for the streaming service. So again, it's back to the whole messaging thing. And as we said before, I am a student. So yes, the book, yes, it was beautiful, but the whole point of the book was to sell it, make money to fund the streaming, to fund the productions. And we did okay, but again, it's in business, you try things and you pivot here, you pivot there. It's all a process.
So I wanted to ask everybody, and we're going to be talking about events because I know a lot of you do events, and so this is an important topic and it was brought up in the chat, but I wanted to ask about fear. The fear of taking the next step. Venus, you mentioned that you just have to do it. You just get started. But how do you overcome that initial trepidation of, can I do it? Will it work? How do you get over the fear of taking that risk?
I think you have to really like set yourself up for success, right? Like, yes, there's going to be risks and sort of shots in the dark at certain things, but I think if you make sure that you have everything together on your end, Crystal and I, one of the reasons why I think we work so well as business partners is that we both are always on the same page, that the devil is in the details, right? So like doing every single thing from your from really carefully curating your RSVP list to make sure you have the right kind of mix of people in the room, to making sure that there's something in the room that feels personal and customizable that people can share on social, so that you're marketing the event properly, to, like there are so many things that you can sort of dial in the details on that are really important to us to make sure that we're always set up for success. And I think when people leave our events, that's what they're always impressed by. They're impressed by the level of curation from the programming. Like Crystal and I, we don't do this as much anymore, but our first couple of events, we would print out a small note card that we could sit next to our dinner seats that says like 7 to 7:15, free flowing entrances, 7:15 to 7:20, like Crystal speaks on X. And even still to this day, when me and Crystal have an event, like it's second nature to us now. We take 5 to 10 minutes before an event to say, okay, this is going to be the flow of how we speak. Like I'm going to open, I'm going to toss to you to say this. We're going to move on to this. You're going to introduce how we do the introductory activity. So yeah, I think, again, all about taking risks, and taking those tough shots, but making sure that you've really put the time in and the preparation in advance to know that those things can soar in real time.
And I also think that with this whole fear thing, because a lot of times we'll put more faith in our previous disappointments or failures than we will in our vision. And you kind of have to just, okay, maybe something didn't work out the way I wanted it to. Then you look at it, what could I have improved? What should I have eliminated? You have to have faith in yourself. Nothing's always going to work perfectly the way that you want it to work. You have to have faith in yourself, faith in your vision to keep going.
I also think the value. I think oftentimes we don't value ourselves enough in the process. Confidence can sometimes already be present, but also taking that first step. Because oftentimes most things just start from the first step. When I first started my business, I was fearless. I have no idea why. I had been in the fashion industry for 10 years and I entered like it was all the same, and it was not. But at that time, it didn't bother me because the drive behind the dream was so strong that I was just willing to try and do. And pretty much I did, and people were open to that from my excitement. And don't be afraid of not knowing everything. It's okay. There's impossible for you to know everything about any subject matter. That's why we all have each other, and it's a part of like being a part of a tribe. And whatever tribe that is that you have, it may start out as friends and family. It may evolve into people that are in similar industries as you, or just other women entrepreneurs who can be very supportive. And it's very motivational to hear other people's stories, whether it's in person, whether it's a podcast, however you receive that inspiration, for me, I meditate. Meditation helps me a lot with my confidence and being able to follow through on my own decisions. That's a part of being an entrepreneur, is having the courage to move on your own instincts of what you're taking something that's not tangible and you're making it tangible for yourself and other people to enjoy or like your skill set or your natural talent. So I think courage and valuing ourselves is so important. The value becomes before the courage. Like, I'm good enough. I can do this. I'm going to at least try, because what is life without trying and starting? You're always thinking, oh, I could have, or I should have. No, just eliminate that thought process and do it, because once you get started, things open up and people come out and the support is there. And you forgot all about the thoughts of like, oh my God, why? And it's like, why not? Why not you? Why not claim your dream? It's, you only get to live once.
Yeah, I agree.
Tanisha, I think you
I
had
will
something
also say,
you were gonna start.
Venus brought it up earlier. Sorry, I will also say
go ahead.
Venus brought up
Yes.
earlier that asking for help. I think when people see you putting action behind your plan, they're very, very willing to help. So if there's somebody who is in the industry that you're looking to like be in, ask that person for help. I think, as long as you're putting action behind it, people are much more willing to assist than you would think.
Kanisha, did you have something to add? I think you had started talking earlier. Did you have something for this one?
Oh, yeah, I was just gonna say that I think Naomi kind of touched on it a little bit, but being prepared, preparation, I think, is key to any successful launch or event, anything. And I think also really anything that creates fear in launching an event or whatever. It's like sometimes like, oh, what if this doesn't happen? What if this doesn't happen? Okay, well, if that doesn't happen, what is your solution? I think a lot of people get stuck there instead of concepting a solution for our worst case fear. And once you have like a plan B, so if that doesn't happen, you have a solution. And then at that point, it may not be exactly what you envisioned, but now we kind of decrease that fear of moving forward because we've made a backup plan just in case. Like, not everything launches or not every event is perfect. I had one this weekend and I hired a content girl and then she just didn't show up. And I was like, oh my God, I'm not gonna have content. I'm like, nope, I just created a new plan. Was it ideal? Because I had to do a little more work on my end. Not exactly, but I still got the content of my event and life goes on. So I think it's just being prepared and also asking those questions. If this doesn't happen, what can I do? And I think that allows you to remove some of that fear of your launch or your event.
So have
And the to-do
the
list.
alleviate the risks by maintaining control and planning. And you have a plan A, plan B. So let's talk about events. There was a great question in the audience about planning events. And I know that a lot of you have done events as either your main activity or as something that was part of building your brand. So when it comes to events, how do you decide whether you should do? I'm going to ask a lot of questions, and you can answer whichever questions feel right to you. How do you decide whether to do events, whether they would be helpful for your brand? How do you decide how frequently to do them? How do you decide who to invite? And then how do you decide what to do at the event in order for it to be just right for the event? That's a whole program right there. That's a whole separate panel.
Yeah, I'll jump in just because me and Crystal do events, and then I know you guys can speak to kind of how you choose to do events for your business or that market your business. But yeah, I think as an events business, like we from day one, again, have been very specific about the details. And I always say events are about understanding people, right? It's about putting yourself in the shoes of the person who is walking in, thinking about, what are they going to gravitate towards in the space? Like how you even set up the space, what might their fears be coming into a situation? Are they going to know other people at this event? Are they walking in by themselves? If they're walking in by themselves, what are some things you can do to loosen up the room and make sure they feel comfortable? Again, I think thinking through the experience from the attendees lens, start to finish, is very important in terms of figuring out your programming and the rest of the details. Crystal and I still, because our business is growing so quickly, we went from doing these one-off dinners to we have like over 300 members across 4 cities now. And so we're dialing in every day. Like, how often do we do events? We just had a call yesterday. We were like, what are we doing? Because we're trying to balance, like, how often are we doing kind of big, grand tentpole events versus how often are we doing smaller, more intimate gatherings just to get people together and really build community and friendships that can last beyond our events. Because our business is very much about sharing resources and people being able to connect with each other in a way that forwards their career and their sort of life missions, if you will. So yeah, and then the last thing I'll say in terms of, for us, again, because we're building a membership and an events-based business, just in terms of like curating the guest list, that's been super important. I think we think of our guest list as sort of choosing the people that we want to be like brand ambassadors for us, right? Like, who are the people who really embody what the mission of our business is the best? And let's make sure we get those people at the table every time. And that will attract the people that we don't know to apply to the membership and join and be, follow us on social media and be interested in what we do if the guest list is really authentic to our mission.
I think for me, in the beginning, I had my dream list or your wish list of events that I thought my product fit into, and doing my research for the categories of fashion that I fell into, whether it was a professional trade show such as Magic was my big list, and being a part of the New York trade shows, and then the small shows that were in LA. Most of them I attended first. I revisited the spaces to see how I fit into those spaces. And then others were word of mouth from other designers or people in the industry who had already participated and suggested that I participated. Some I was invited to, and the other ones that were like brand new events that had never taken place in LA or other places. Sometimes if I had the budget for it and I had the product, the inventory available, or if I have time to create the product because I'm designing and manufacturing things, all of those things are taken into consideration, and the volume of the history of the shows. So the other thing is that established shows have a list of people and marketing and branding already in place. So you know that you're going and your intention is it to brand and position yourself, or is your intention to actually make a profit from your products? Because some shows that are not established, it's just a trial and error process. You don't know if you'll profit at all. And I think this is really key for new business owners, because you go and it's not good to spend all of your cash or charge everything up on your credit card and do everything, give everything you have to be in this one show, because your business continues after the show. So take in consideration your budget of what you can afford and what you can spend on branding your cards, you know, the setup of your booth and your product, and the time value. That's the one thing I underestimated in doing the shows. I have experience in doing trade shows, but when it became my product, there's so many more details to consider. So I started having a budget for the show, a budget for product, a budget for presentation, and putting the value on how much time it takes for me to do all of this, because my business is still moving forward and I still have customers to support with product once before the show starts and once the show ends. And what is my goal in doing this show? Because some shows that I did, I found out, oh, this is a marketing project. That's what I just decided for myself. This is a way to get the word out about my brand or introduce people to my product. And do I want to give away product? Do I want to raffle product? Just asking yourself the questions, and don't be afraid. I was afraid to say no. I was so excited about doing the events and being present that I was irrational. It's okay to say no and that you're not ready right now to do it. It's also okay to bring other people in to assist you, friends and family and people you know that can help you get going with the show. It's much better than setting up and doing these shows alone, because it's a lot of work. You have to be prepared to do the show, participation, and then you have to be at the show and interact with people unless you're going to have someone else. So understanding the balance of those two is extremely important, because people see and recognize your energy and they relate that to your brand. So you want to be fresh, you want to be ready, you want to have nice cards, you want to have a nice backdrop, and you also on, and you're going to be on the rest of the day. Getting used to that. And my ending thing is to-do list for a show is beyond essential. What you have to have a to-do list. It's a standard to-do list for every show.
Can I add
Checklist.
something?
Be on.
I just want to add something from the perspective of hosting events. Hosting events is fabulous for a business. StartHER TV, we've done some just for awareness. And one thing I will say is, don't try to be like everyone else. Don't try to put on an event like everyone else. You know, yes, that one event had 250 people attend and they charge XYZ amount of money and all that stuff. Don't try to, if you're just starting, this is your first event, you're just starting, don't try to be like that. Do your own thing. Small is actually quite good. I remember a few years ago, tried to put on one of those big events and really didn't understand how expensive they could be until I started meeting with the people and all that stuff. And when I pivoted and just did something smaller, a more intimate event, I had a really nice crowd. That was one of the first things they said to me was, oh, I like the fact that we're not in a large room with a whole bunch of people and no one's going to talk to each other. They like the fact that, you know, we did things like warm-ups or, welcome activities so that they could interact with each other. It was less stress on me financially. And these people are still on my mailing list and still engaged to this day. I think with events, you can use them to connect with your audience, find your audience, talk to your audience. But I think you need to make a small investment first. I've gone to events where I remember one of my first events, entrepreneur events, and I loved it. It was just a co-working thing. We all met up at like a WeWork type of a thing. And there was, we all got to know each other. So events, I say start small, as everyone said, have a plan. But it's a good thing.
Kanisha, I know you just talked about having an event this weekend. Are events a major part of the way that you build your target audience, you connect with your target audience?
I use events as a way to find target audience or potential new clients. I host an event once a month. I do it consistently so that when I share, people are a little more familiar. They're like, oh yeah, I heard you do this event. So my event is called Sip and Shoot. It's where I host a networking event, and it's also where people can come in and get updated headshots. at the event. I bring in guest people that kind of work back into my target audience or my niche. I recently partnered with a stylist. Sometimes I'll partner with content people so that when people come in, they get a little bit of a taste of the branding experience from me. My goal with my events, and I think everyone's goal might be different since I use mine as a marketing opportunity. My goal is to really connect with my potential audience and then let them really just meet me and learn about what I offer without it having to feel like a cold introduction to my business. So they get to come in, they get to, meet cool people, they get to understand my vibe and how I work. They, I feel like they get a little more of a personal experience with me versus a dry inquiry form. And then they're like, oh, I hope this works out. They get to like meet me and understand what I offer my clients. So that's how I usually use events. I use it to also build community because sometimes I have other clients just come back like, oh, I just wanted to update my headshot since we haven't shot in 6 months. I'm like, okay, cool. Or, hey, I saw you were hosting and you brought on this special person to do content audits. I came in for that. Cool. Yeah. So for me, I like to use events as opportunities to build my community and also find new members to add to that community.
And we had a question in the chat that I wanted to add on to our discussion of events, and that is, how do you maintain a momentum of building an audience without losing their interest? So this has to do with events, but even beyond, how you communicate on social media and other networking and marketing actions. So how do you keep an audience interested?
I said that for me, keeping it fresh and authentic. For me, I teach yoga classes. I design and manufacture apparel, and we have events all the time, but for different things and different options. So I found also consistency, staying present with your customers. Even if, and I've taken breaks recently, I didn't think you could take a break from social media, but I took a break from social media, but I still stayed connected when I did come forth again, whether it was a post, an email, or updated text messages, you're still staying in communications with them and letting them know what you're doing now and what they can be a part of. And I find that they really appreciate that, even when they don't respond immediately and say anything. When you do it again, the consistency of whatever you're doing, they start responding or replying or asking, oh, are you going to do it again? Or I'm really excited about that. So I think consistency and being authentic about your brand and product is very good.
Yeah, I think we've
ahead.
broken the fourth wall of like entrepreneurship, if you will. And so now people actually want to know about your journey as an entrepreneur or co-founder and like what you're dealing with, obviously within reason and a professional amount. But I find that, in terms of keeping our audience with us, like, letting them see us evolve as a business, posting when we have a rebrand and like the reason behind the rebrand. I think letting them in. And then there's another way to do that even more professionally, right? Is to like have a separate personal page. So people who are particularly interested in your entrepreneur journey and want more from the business, they can go to me and Crystal's personal Instagram to see us post a 10-second clip talking direct to camera about, how we ran around for 48 hours, to prep for X event. I think that's another way. I think for us as entrepreneurs, we've really grown up with our audience over time, and that's been a big way to keep them involved. They sort of feel like they're building the business with us, which I think is fairly common of businesses nowadays.
Giving
That's
people
what I was
a little
going to
bit
say.
of
Yeah,
inside scoop.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Exactly. People like the whole behind the scenes, and with events like recap videos, people love seeing, what happened at the event. And so that really keeps them interested. Testimonials also.
So we had a question in the chat, and this is a topic that I'm interested in, and I think that folks out there would be interested as well. How do you get over the fear of speaking in front of an audience? Do you get over it?
You don't.
No, you don't. You just do it.
You don't. But I will say, creating situations for yourself to get comfortable and also figuring out what works for yourself and what situations you're more comfortable in so that you can adapt and prepare more in the situations where you're less comfortable. For example, panels like this for me, things that feel conversational, easy, comfortable, no-brainer because I'm used to talking. You know what I mean? Though, like it feels like a one-on-one, whereas like I remember the first couple events that I had to do without Crystal, because sometimes we're not both on site for our events. I was like sweating a little bit. I had to map out the same way that we do when we're together. Like, what do I want to say? What's the flow of what I need to say? And again, for some people, that's making notes. Some people need to physically write out what they need to say and kind of see it word for word. Some people might even need to rehearse something. And then again, creating situations where you do feel comfortable. Like I was very lucky. You know, my co-founder is a TV personality. So I was able to lean on her a lot in the early days of my business. And if you need to lean on someone else, sometimes, you know, that may be the reality of how you sort of practice and then eventually graduate to situations where you can speak comfortably in front of a small group to a medium group to eventually a large group.
You can also, there's a program called Toastmasters that they do regular public speaking exercise. It's all about public speaking. And that's one, or you could even take a public speaking class at a local community college, and that may help you get over that fear.
I
I
think for
co-sign and
me,
co-sign and co-sign Toastmasters.
I love Toastmasters. For me, I went from speaking in front of people all the time to teaching yoga and fashion designing and being quiet a lot, you know, privately designing. And yesterday I had my first pitch for my newly branded business. And I can tell you all the practice in the world, the preparation is key, but practice, practice, practice. And the one thing that helped me the most and being more comfortable, because I was an extremely shy person for a very long time, was acting classes, introduction to acting. Because I took public speaking in college, fashion school, we had to do presentations all the time. So I felt good with talking about things that I'm comfortable with that make me happy. But when we would get from that subject matter, I'd be like, oh my God, right? Acting class on camera taught me more about speaking publicly than anything else I've ever taken. I was like, oh my God, everyone should take an acting class, like introduction to acting on camera, because it releases your fears by just asking you questions and seeing yourself on camera on a consistent basis. And what you do and how you do it was like really critical for a breakthrough for me, because I didn't want to talk in front of people that I didn't know. And yesterday I was nervous. I was prepared, wasn't as prepared as I would like to be, but I just did it. And I find that practice in every opportunity. And I only did it because I wanted to practice.
Kanisha, did you have anything to add about public speaking?
Yeah, I would just add that when it comes to like a topic that you're really passionate about or your business, no one can speak better about your business, your brand than you can. And I think when you own that, it gives you like a little bit of a confidence boost that you can really walk into any room and speak about your business, because you are the end all be all, the master of the information. So I think when you kind of just own that feeling of like, okay, no one can actually do this better than me. So even if I'm not perfect, whatever I'm giving at this moment is definitely probably the best option. I also believe that any opportunity that you have to speak in front of a group, an audience, just it gets better with time. I think what Venus was saying, like being able to practice and redo it, and where you're at now is definitely not where you're going to be at in 6 months or a year. And I think just giving yourself a little bit of that room for growth is definitely going to give you some type of improvement when it comes to speaking in front of big audiences or small.
And then for the next question, this question was in our Q&A. It's specifically for Naomi and Crystal, but I want to open it up, at least the second part of it. So first of all, the question is, Naomi, Crystal, how do you make money in your business? So that's the first question, and so that's for you specifically. And then the next question is, because of the pandemic, when people became more isolated, do you feel more people are looking for social groups? And I think that's a question that I want to throw out to everybody. How has the pandemic changed the way you see your target audience and the way you market? And are people more or less interested? So let's start with the first one, Crystal and Naomi.
Yeah, I think so when we started Fortune Forks, our goal was always to kind of lean on brands who wanted to align with our demographic. And as time has, happened and the demand has grown, we have realized that, during COVID, a lot of brands were like, yeah, we support people of color. And then coming out of that, and now everybody's going back to like their regular schedule programming. We've realized like, all right, they talk the talk, but like they're done walking the walk. So we've had to kind of pivot in terms of what we charge. So typically we still like to depend on brands to sponsor our events and stuff, but we have shifted to a membership fee now, and that allows us to really conduct multiple events throughout the year.
And then with regards to the pandemic, do you feel like the pandemic has changed the way people see social groups? They want to connect more or less?
For sure, for sure. I think
Yeah.
what Crystal said, our two kind of key revenue streams are through brand partnerships and through membership and application fees. But I think coming out of the pandemic is when we really chose to evolve into a social club as opposed to just a professional network. Because two things. One, we felt like, you can't really be successful in your career if we don't serve the whole person, right? Your mental health needs to be intact, physical wellness, all those things kind of contribute to how you can thrive in an office setting and, whatever your day-to-day work life is. And then we also just saw greater demand and greater interest in some of our events that were not just resume workshops. Like, yes, those were great. And especially coming out of the pandemic, while everyone was job searching, there was interest in that. But some of our events that were just like a picnic outdoors or a workout, people were super excited about. And in a lot of ways can create more like authentic and engaging friendships and relationships than like a place where you feel like, it's resume first.
But yes, people are always looking for community, and I think the pandemic has really opened up everybody's eyes and showed them like the real value in having community.
I think for me, during the pandemic, I made masks for 2 years, and it was weird because my products, I realized that I hadn't really introduced my products to friends and family on a certain platform, but the mask opened that up to everyone, right? And so by it opening that up to everyone, I introduced just the products that I had in inventory at home, and it sold really quickly because of that. So that opened up a new market for me. But I also was in yoga teacher training during the pandemic, and that was a very different training because we were not allowed to participate with other studios and attending for class credit as a part of your accreditation. So your entire accreditation was done online. And I first started teaching yoga to people online and extending my privates, mostly private. I wasn't doing any group classes. And then I had to pivot into coming out of COVID and understanding that like most of the studios that I sold my product to had closed, and learning how the new world of wellness evolved from COVID into out of COVID, right? Which was strange because there was this pause because so many people went exclusively online. But then I found that it opened me up to looking at things in a very different way and expanding the brand, because then everyone wanted to be outside or they wanted to be involved in community in different ways. So I had been a part of this very large yoga community that was kind of shattered, and people loved the Airbnb experiences. Everyone wanted to be at the beach. So I was like, I was teaching couples and, was teaching group managers and things like that. So it expanded, and then they became afraid to come in the studio for a while. And now that's back open again. And I love all the new activities in the wellness community and how we're enjoying each other and appreciating each other in a different way since COVID.
Kanisha, have you found that your audiences have changed, or the way that you approach your audiences have changed during the pandemic? I know that you went through a pivot at some point during that time.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think my experience with the pandemic was a little different because I was actually still very new to photography. I picked up a camera in 2019. So then
Mhm.
it's like a year in and the pandemic hit. Everyone's like, no, there's no business. I was like, I didn't really have any. And so for me, my transition to the pandemic was a little different. It was like the beginning of where I was really comfortable charging. My rates was kind of like towards the end of 2020. And then I think there was also that shift of everyone wanting to support a lot of people of color as artists and invest that way. So I saw a shift in my business that way, where people were using the Google words of, Black female photographers and looking for specifically me. So for me, I saw that as a shift from the pandemic when it came to my business. I wasn't hosting events per se at that time. But I knew once coming out of the pandemic, I wanted to host events and connect with people because I feel like in that time I was connecting with a lot of people just online, and I was craving in-person interactions, and I feel like if I was, my audience probably was as well. And so then I made the shift a little bit later into like more in-person things.
Thank you. And Judith?
Um, during the pandemic, I participated in a lot of virtual events, and I also hosted several virtual events.
Work ready.
And yeah, these, but then also
Yeah, no,
StartHER TV. But then when everything was winding down, did a first in-person event in Detroit, and people just came out. They were ready, they were waiting. And I think people really want to be outside. They really want to have that in-person interaction. I look forward to doing more events. I love doing events, but my events are small, on small scale.
So we're getting close to our end time here, and I have two more questions. We'll do the first one, and then after we'll finish with the second one here. So the first question is, have there been any accidents or sort of fortuitous occurrences in how you discovered your target audiences, or how things have shifted with your target audiences? Like little happy accidents in your journeys.
I would say for me, like I guess a happy accident is like I was um with another group of other branding photographers, and I feel like for me I was still serving a lot of different clients, and for me being in a room of people who serve a similar audience and having them kind of reaffirm my thoughts of like, no, it's okay to niche down and narrow down and be very specific so that your marketing doesn't feel very broad or diluted. For me, I think was a happy accident because I wasn't looking for the information, but when it came to me, I was like, oh, this resonates with me really well. And this feels where I need to be, like where I really focused harder on my audience because of the confirmation from other people who do similar things.
Does anybody have anything else? Any happy accidents to add?
I think I had a happy accident. I was doing a pop-up for the W Hotel for women business owners. And I had not been doing pop-ups for quite some time because of the pandemic, and I just had stopped because we did them so much originally. And I met the manager, and he really liked the product, and he shopped. And I just put my little yoga card on the table just in case, and someone's interested in yoga, although it's not a yoga event. And he took the card and he said, "What is this about yoga?" And I was like, "Well, I teach yoga. I teach private groups, couples, whatever the need is." And he said, "We don't have yoga, and we do need to do something with it." And I just automatically assumed that the yoga would be for the people coming into the hotel, for the guests. And we pivoted because he said, "No, I would like yoga for the managers. I feel like, the managers, this is right before the hotel strike, the hospitality strike that was about to start that I knew nothing about." And he says, they're going to be very stressed out before and probably really bad after, and we need to really try to retain them and keep them calm because we don't know how long the strike is going to be. And I was just like, okay. So I I sent a proposal the next morning. They're really nice to me. They're like, they roll out the red carpet literally when you come. It's the only client I have that does everything that I asked for. The rooms, the setup, the sound, everything. And I taught the man, and he didn't want yoga. He only wants meditation. It was one of those things that he said, every hotel does yoga, and I'm sick of yoga. I said, okay. So we did this really nice, serene meditation for managers. And that's been some months ago. And now today I have another call with them that I'm going to go into a contract for doing the residents, which are like categories that I never considered. I've been marketing myself to hotels to teach and to sell my spa collection clothing, but I never considered the resident sector or the management sector. So that was like one of those little sweet moments.
Yeah. Congratulations.
So the question I want to end with, it reflects and brings it back to the forefront, something that has been mentioned throughout, and that is a service. You're serving your audience, and the passion that you have for what you do and the people that you serve. And the question is, how important is this affinity for your target audience? I would say even above your own experience, how important is it to say like or love your audience?
Yeah, I mean, I think luckily for us, our audience is a lot of our peers. And so, it's an audience that we are personally passionate about, obsessed with, big fans of. And as a result, I think really committed to, again, understanding what they find exciting, what's interesting to them. Me and Crystal are always thinking about, like, for our next move, what's the next thing that would feel special to this specific demographic. So yeah, that's from day one been like a driving force for us.
Judith, do you have anything for that one?
Well, for me, I want my audience, when they view my content, to walk away feeling hopeful and feeling good about themselves. Too much content with people who look, Black and brown women on just Black and brown women. Too much media content is so negative sometimes, and I just want something. I just want to counter that. I care about how people feel about themselves. I care about them having the ability to see their dreams come to pass. I care about those things. So I want to create content that will show them that everything is possible. If you're willing to work hard, if you don't give up, it's possible.
Thank you, Judith.
I think
Kanisha,
for
oh,
me-
sorry, go ahead, Venus.
I think for me, I found that servicing my customers taught me more about really appreciating myself and my brand and what I'm offering and my product and the yoga offerings. I think I went from knowing my market to not knowing my customers to really getting acquainted with my customers. And I love what I do. I think that's critical because if you don't enjoy it, you don't have a passion for it, it's easy not to give your 100% to it. But I appreciate, I feel like the customer, owner, director, founder relationship is all about, we're like servicing each other, because my appreciation for being able to see people wearing my product and loving it and telling me about it makes me more inspired to do more, but also gives me this affinity to listen and tune in more to what they're saying to me, is a really important thing. I think that I didn't listen to in the beginning as much in my business because I was very into my dream, what I thought it would be, So I love hearing from them, and I love them inspiring me to create more or to define the product more according to what their needs are.
Thank you. And Kanisha, would you like to close us off on this question?
Yeah, I think it's for me, like, I love that I can connect with my clients, and that I always tell them it's it's a collaboration. Even though I kind of lead the shoot, like I want to make sure that they're always comfortable with my guidance, that they're, when they are launching their brand or their business, they already have so much pressure and weight on their shoulders. Like I want to feel like I am kind of that support for them, and I want to make sure that they feel at the end of the day connected to me because I'm passionate about what I do. So I lead into my audience that I I really want to connect with them and help them with their brand. And I find that it just makes it easier when you can work with someone and from the first discovery call can already like kiki on the phone and, really have a connection and a friendship. And like, we don't have to be friends, but I love that we can really just kind of pour back into each other. And that's one of like my biggest things with my clients is like, I want them to feel very comfortable with me because we spend a lot of time, curating their brand and then doing their photo shoot. I don't want it to come off as very transactional. Just because this is their baby, this is their passion, and I wouldn't want anyone to treat my baby or my passion just for like a quick fee. So for me, it's like my audience has to feel very connected to me, and I have to feel very connected to them. If there's a disconnect, I'm like, it's not going to work because it's going to resonate in the photos. It's going to resonate in what you post. It's going to resonate in what you do. And I want to make sure that with my audience that they are always comfortable just with me as their partner in this portion of their business.
So you have to understand the audience and connect with them and then amplify those things that they want to see and that you feel would be the best. Well, we're at the end of our panel, and I give a heartfelt thanks to all of our panelists. Thank you, Judith. Thank you, Crystal. Thank you, Venus. Thank you, Naomi. And thank you, Kanisha. Very much appreciate you being here and sharing your personal experiences with our audience. And I thank you to the audience. Thank you for being here with us, asking your questions, being part of the conversation. And we hope to see you in the future. Before I sign off, I would like to just humbly ask that you fill out our post-event survey. It's a very short survey, and it helps us plan the work-ready events for the future. I read all the surveys and I take your suggestions on making the events the best that they could be. I just posted a link to the post-event survey in the chat. Once again, thank you to our panelists. Thank you to the audience, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you, everyone.